What's up, party people? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be putting a new size on a pattern that's been around forever. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I have made this pattern often or quite a lot. I sell it a lot. It's a lot of fun to make. It comes together really quick. It's extremely satisfying. And throughout the years, I have put my own spins and twists on it, but I've never made it this size. So I would show you, but I already made it and shipped it. Here's a photo. It is a range backpack. And so back in, I think it was like August, September, I did a mini version where I made it at 75%. And the mini was really great. I think that it would be perfect for, I don't know, people who don't carry a ton of stuff, or for like a kid. I think it was a perfect mini backpack for a kid. But my customer wanted something that was a slightly bigger, that would act more like a backpack, but still be considered small and be super versatile and easy to carry around. And so we settled on 85%. And I gotta say, I think that this is my favorite size. The 100% full size range is a gorgeous size, but it's a honkin' backpack. It's a big backpack. But the 85, I think, in my personal opinion, is the perfect size to qualify as a backpack, but to not be insane and just too much. So I'm going to show you real quick how you take measurements, like a measurement cut list, and change the percentage, because a lot of times you have pattern pieces that you can just print out. Like in the last video, you print out the pattern piece at 70% instead of 100. But what do you do if you just have a cut list? How do you calculate that? So I wanted to show you how I did that real quick. I won't be using the actual measurements from the pattern because you need to buy that, which that'll all be linked below. But I figured that I would just make something up. So let's say the main panel on whatever you're making, 11 inches tall. So 11 inches tall by 8 inches wide. And you need to figure out, say that's 100%. Look at this notepad. I have asked you thrice. David Rose is my twin. That attitude, that's me in real life. Anyways, so how do you take this, if this is the 100% measurement, how do you take that and make it 80%? So what you do is you're gonna grab a calculator, unless you're really good at math and you can do this in your head, that's totally fine. But you're gonna open up your calculator app, and so you need to take 11 and you times that by 80%. It can't get more simple than that. And then press equal. So you need to cut your piece 8.8 inches to make 11 inches 80%. Now 8.8, where is that on the ruler? This is where you're going to take some liberties. So if this was the measurement that I was using, I would probably bump that up to 9, and then wherever I saw that 11-inch measurement in the pattern, I would know that that would be 9 inches. So it might skew the look of things ever so slightly, but I would just round up or round down in order to make it easier. You could also just do 8.75 and no one would be, that's totally fine. So 8.8, actually, I think I probably would do 8.75, not 9. So I would put that to 8.75 inches. And then we need to figure out the wide. So that's 8 inches. So you do 8 times 80%. And that's 6.4 inches. So 6.4, I would probably just bump that to 6.5 if I'm being honest. So I would round up or down, use your judgment. So 11 by 8 panel at 80% would be 8.75 times 6.5. So that is what I did for the range backpack. I went down the entire cut list and I multiplied every single number by 80%. And it's really not that hard to do. I think it intimidates a lot of people and it can be overwhelming. But if you just go number by number, line by line, it's a really simple way to change the dimensions. You can even enlarge a pattern using the same method. So if you wanted 11 by 8, but you wanted it 120%, so you want it even larger, you would just do 11 times 120%, and that's 13.2. So it's really simple. You would just swap out the percentage point for whatever size you want to make it. And yeah, I feel like people overthink that all the time, and so I just wanted to share that with you. Amendments that I made to the pattern, now I have to remember because I've already sent it out. I used My Big Hardware as the strap attachments. I do remember that. I changed the front closure to have one of my strap attachments as well. And I added an interior slip pocket and an interior zipper pocket. I did the double berth method where I left a big berthing hole in the lining and then I left one inside the zipper pocket and I pulled through and sealed up all the holes that way so to mitigate any internal seams. This is a very long-winded intro. I hope that you found it helpful though. If at any point you are enjoying this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, subscribe, share, join the Facebook group, join the Patreon, blah, 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 blah. All the things, you know. And yeah, enjoy. See you at the end of the video. Before we get started, let's go over our cut materials. We have the front center main panel and then the two side panels here. This is aqua cork and this is cobalt. These are, all the cork is from Fabric Funhouse. And then this is going to be the front cargo pocket that I will do a series of folds on. I have my, what does that say? Oh, slip pocket topper. So on the interior, there's going to be a fabric slip pocket and I'm going to put this around the top to encase the raw edge. So this is brown cork. Also in brown cork, I have the back strip. This is the section on the back of the bag that will attach to the straps and the hang loop. I also have my zipper overlay as well as my zipper strip. So this will go above my zipper tape on the front pocket on the front of the bag. This is my entire back section here. And then I have my base. Now this is the only piece of cork that I interfaced, and that is specifically because my client asked, she said that she wanted a bag that will soften up and break in over time. And so I didn't want to interface my main corks just to help that process along, but it never hurts to have just an extra piece along the base of your bag just to provide extra durability and all of that. These are the slip pocket and the interior zipper pocket. This pattern doesn't normally have a zipper pocket on the inside, but I like it for a couple of reasons. First being that it adds an extra pocket and it's nice to have that along the interior. And then also I will be using it to do the double berth method to avoid having an exposed stitch line on the inside of the bag. And then I have my two lining panels here. Now, if you take a close look at them, you can see that they taper, although I don't know if the perspective picks up on the camera, but it's wider at the top. And then I tapered it in down here at the bottom, about 3/4 of an inch. This helps alleviate some of the bagginess on the inside once the bag is completed. And then for hardware, get all this out of the way. For hardware, I am going to use a clip to close the bag at the very top. It'll fold over and clip, so I'll be using that. And then some of this big hardware here that's on my site. For zipper pulls, she opted for the large donuts. I got these from Waywack. And then I have 1.5 slides for my straps, my rivets. Speaking of straps, this is the gorgeous webbing that I'm using. This is ladder webbing in the color teal from Georgia Girl Stitches, and it perfectly matches all of the colors that are of the cork. So it's got the aqua, which kind of matches this like seafoamy color here, cobalt, black, and then cream. So just, I mean, couldn't have found a better match for this backpack. So these will be the straps. I potentially might do the hang loop out of this as well. I'm thinking about folding it in on itself to create a 1-inch fold, but yeah, we'll see. If not, then I will cut out a hang loop later out of cork. And then for the zipper, she opted for this turquoise zipper. I got this from Waywack and it is number 5 and the color teal. First things first, we're going to prep our cargo pocket. And the way that you're going to do that is you need to first find your center line. So mine is right here. And I'm just going to mark it the entire length of the panel, height of the panel, I suppose would be a better way to say that. And then I'm going to measure 2 inches over and make a line, 2 inches to the right and then 2 inches to the left. And these are going to serve as our fold lines. Clementine decided that right now is a great time for bath. Okay, so once you have your lines marked, what you're going to do is fold wrong sides together along this far line here. And so I just like to take it, I put my nails right on the line, and then I use that as my fold. And so it's going to look something like that. And then you're going to finger press and clip. And if you want to, you can pull this up and out of the way and do the same thing over here, or wait until after we stitch this. But for now, I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch using 1/8 seam allowance up this entire fold. Okay, so I am using Tech 70 thread. This is Amon bonded nylon from Waywack. I said all this in the previous video that I decided to cut out because the dogs went crazy over nothing. So you're welcome. Saved us all headaches from all of our dogs barking. So once you get the first one stitched, you're going to fold this out of the way and then repeat that here with this far left line. If you need to, you can just clip it. There we go. All right, and then stitch 1/8 seam allowance like so. And then while I'm here, I'm also going to just tack these folds into place to create the cargo pocket itself. So this is what it kind of looks like. Now what you want to do is you're going to take these two folds and fold them until they align with your middle, your center line that we drew to begin with. Okay, looks good there. And so once you get that, what you want to do, or what I like to do, you can do whatever you want. I like to just tack about 3 or 4 stitches right here across the top at an 1/8 seam allowance, because that's the same seam allowance that I'm going to take whenever I install it to the zipper. I'm going to do the same down here just so that nothing shifts around on me. Okay. There we go. I just realized that I forgot to cut out the cargo pocket backing, so I'm going to do that real quick. I'm just going to cut it out of my fabric, and since I have this here, I can just use this as my pattern piece. Now, the original pattern has you make the cargo pocket lining the same exact way that you make the exterior, but in my experience, this pocket is so narrow that it doesn't truly act like a cargo pocket. It just kind of has the look, and if you jam it full of stuff, it certainly will stretch out. But having the lining be a cargo pocket doesn't really change that. So what I have done in all my years of making this bag is I just make the lining just one flat piece rather than adding that extra bulk to make it a cargo, when it just doesn't really, in my opinion, it's not very necessary. I'm just going to grab some interfacing. To complete this front cargo pocket, now that we have our lining all ready to go, you need to grab your zipper and a pull. Also, if you are going to leave the top raw like I am, if you want to, you can go ahead and add a thin layer of Mod Podge or base coat just to seal this edge here. And while that dries, we're going to get our zipper pull onto the tape. And then I'm going to grab some 1/8 double-sided tape, and I'm going to put it on the side that I did my Mod Podge on. I'm going to put one piece of this just here at the top, like so, and then as well along one of these top edges. And then we're just going to make, well, not quite a sandwich, never mind. Hold, please. Okay, so now that we have that prepped, we have this prepped, we're going to peel this tape here and get our zipper tape exactly how we want it. Now you can see I have like this weird funky bubble, and that's fine. I'm just going to bump this all the way over to the edge. I also cut my zipper tape longer than this panel just to give myself some runway to work with here. So make sure your tape is nice and straight, that your pull is out of the way if possible. And then we're going to lay this right side up along the right side of the zipper tape. Now, usually in a zipper sandwich, you'd be laying this right side down and then you stitch, flip, and then top stitch. But that is a lot of bulk when you're talking about all of these layers here folded to create that cargo, which is why I do it this way. So once you have this in place, you're going to grab your lining and peel the paper off of your tape if you can. There we go. And then I'm going to lay it right side down along that bottom edge of the zipper tape. So it should look something like this. Now I'm going to go to the machine, and from the right side, I'm going to stitch 1/8 seam allowance, and then I can fold this down and out of the way. Now my goal here is to go straight across these stay stitches that I made earlier. All right, so now once you have it all stitched down, you just go to the back here. I like to put my hand on the tape to hold it in place. I'm going to pull in opposite directions to create a nice crisp folded edge there. And then what I like to do is put a piece of tape or glue, and I will glue these two wrong sides together. I think I'm actually just going to do some tape because it's easier. So just something along those lines. Doesn't have to be super well thought out or crafted. You just need them to stick together. Alternatively, you could just baste them, you know, fold them wrong sides together and then baste around the bottom edge, or sides and bottom. Okay, so now our cargo pocket is complete. Next step is to attach the cargo pocket to the center panel. So I have my center panel and my zipper strip. Now my zipper strip is a little bit different than the pattern outlines because I'm not folding the top or the bottom under, I'm leaving them raw. So I went ahead and I cut out a piece. I like the look of this size. You can feel free to make it however tall you want, but I did 1.25 inches tall by the width of my center panel. And I'm also going to amend the lower loop area. Normally this is where you have your D-ring, your lower D-ring that the upper closure will clasp onto. Now I am going to be using a piece of folded hardware for that, and it's going to go right on top of my zipper strip. So if you are using a traditional lower loop like the pattern outlines, you're going to be tucking that under here once we get it over here. So first things first, let's attach our zipper strip to the top of our zipper tape. So I'm going to grab some tape and put some at the top and the bottom here, like so. And I'm just going to lay this right side up across the top here. And I'm trying to be aware of, I want to have the same amount of width of zipper tape that I have showing down here. That's what I'm looking for at the top as well. Okay, so it should look something like that. And then now we're going to take it and lay it along our center panel here. And I'm looking to line up my sides and my bottom edge. And then this will just kind of fall where it's supposed to. If you need to center it, lay it on your cutting mat, lay the bottom edge along one of the cutting lines, and then you're going to take this center fold here and align it with that center mark, and then lay everything down and then clip everything into place so that it doesn't shift around. Like so. And then once that's good to go, what we're going to do is I'm going to pivot and pick this up carefully, peel that back paper, and then stick this into place. Now, if you want to, you can measure it, make sure it's straight across. If it's not, make those changes now before we go to the machine. If you're using the traditional lower loop like the pattern says, this is where you're going to tuck it in. You tuck it in right here, top center, underneath your zipper strip. If you are going to be using hardware like I am, then omit it all. We're just going to stitch across this, and then we'll add this in the next step. But so once you get everything situated and where it's supposed to be, you're going to go and you're stitching along this bottom edge of the zipper strip and the top edge here. Now, another thing that I like to do is I'm going to baste around the sides and the bottom, so that way this whole entire panel is perfect and nothing is going to move around on me later on in the process. Okay, so to lock all of this in one stitch line, I'm going to start over here, top left, stitch across, 1/8 seam allowance, stitch down, stitch across the bottom, 1/8 seam allowance, and then down the side, across the bottom, then back up to finish everything off. All right, we've got it all stitched around. I love the way that this aqua thread looks on the brown cork. It's a really nice pop of color there. And the entire front pocket is now complete and finished, and a workable pocket here. And last thing we need to do is attach our strap hardware. This is, again, acting as the lower loop. So if you are following along with what I'm doing, what I did is I took one of the flat pieces of hardware that I sell, and then I just pulled it around the D-ring that comes with it and used my rivet press and just it's just my regular rivet pieces in here. I don't have the flat plates. I just pressed it to be tight. And now I'm going to line it up with the center line here and mark where I need to punch my hole to install it. And I'm lining up the bottom, this base ridge right here, with the top of my zipper strip panel here. Okay. So that is where I'm going to punch the hole. Just like that. I'm going to grab a rivet. If you want to, you can certainly add a piece of cork or some sort of washer here along the back and get this set into place. So it looks something like that. Next, we're going to grab our side panels here. We're going to finish off. This will complete, once these are stitched in place, this will complete the entire front panel. So you're just going to take these two long pieces and you lay them right sides together. You're lining up your edges. I have a little bit of overhang here, so if you want to, you can trim this all down first, which I guess never hurts. So I'm trimming it down so that it's the same as my center panel. That's what I'm using as my trim line here. And then now, from the front, lay these pieces right sides together, clip, and then we're going to go stitch these. Now I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I'm going to continue that seam allowance throughout the entirety of the project until I get to the lining, which I'll touch on later. But a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So the original pattern in the full size, well, in all of her patterns, she has you use, I'm fairly certain, a 3/8 seam allowance. I am just more comfortable using a 1/4 inch. It's what I always use, so that is what I'm going to do. This is your circus. These are your monkeys, so you do whatever you want. So now that I have both my panels clipped, I'm going to go stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance, flip, and fold them open to finger press nicely, and I'm going to top stitch using 1/8 seam allowance. This is our front panel all completed. It looks so good. I feel like once you add these side panels, it really ties the room together, and I just love it. You can really start to see the whole vision coming to life when you get here. It's just such a fun step. But now, let's make the back panel. Before we can start on the back panel, we need to prep our hang loop and our upper closure. Now, I just had to do some measurements, so I didn't list them in the beginning. But my hang loop is going to be 8 inches long by 2 inches wide, and then we're going to fold in toward the center, stitch, and then along this area we'll do the double fold to make it nice and narrow, 1/2 inch, but then it'll have 1 inch bottoms to sit into the strap reinforcement strip. And then for the upper closure, I overestimated it at 7 inches long because if push comes, or worst comes to worst, we just trim it down, but I don't want to go through the process of adding it to have to remove it. So I'd rather have it be too long than too short. So 7 inches by 2 inches wide. And then same thing, we're going to mark our center on both. And I'm going to take a piece of double stick tape. I've got my 1/2 inch tape here, and I'm going to put it right on top of that line that I just created. And so you're going to take each long edge and fold them into the center line. Now that we have both of them done, what we're going to do is I'm going to stitch 4 stitch lines. I'm going to do both outer edges and then just alongside this seam down the center. And so from the right side, you'll see nice 4 uniform lines along the front. Now on the hang loop, I'm only going to do the interior 2 lines right around the seam line here, because then whenever we fold it and to make it a narrow hang loop, that's when we'll stitch this section here. So before I go over there, I'm going to mark 2 inches up from each short edge. And that's where I will start and stop my stitch line to create that narrow section there. And then that will give us enough room to tuck this into the reinforcement strip. But if that's confusing, don't worry about it. We will cross that bridge when we get there. Let's go stitch our lines. This is what it should look like here and then here. And isn't that just stunning, the blue on the brown? I just love that combo. Okay, so I always like to add a rivet here right where I start my rolled handle, but like a rolled, whatever I'm rolling, whether it be a strap, hang loop handle, I like to add a rivet here right where I start and stop. So that way, when the bag is in heavy use, it's not going to, these stitches won't pop. And if they do pop, then there'll be a second line of defense there in the way of a rivet. So I'm just going to punch a hole and add a shorty rivet right here. Now we're going to grab our back piece, our back panel, and our reinforcement strip. So here's the reinforcement strip. Now I'm treating this the same exact way as all the other raw pieces, and I I sealed the edges. I did a quick layer of Mod Podge down both long edges. All right, and then here's my back panel. You want to make sure that you have the correct measurement So it should be taller than it is wider, and it's just a minute difference. So just make sure that you're using, that you've got it the right way. Another indicator is your reinforcement strip should be the same width. As you can tell here, it's not the same, so that's how I know. And there we go. Now I also need my straps. I went ahead and I cut my straps to, I believe 36. Yep, I cut them to 36. The pattern calls for 20 inches, but the pattern also has strap attachments that I'm omitting. And so I just want to be sure that this will fit anybody that needs to carry the bag. So 35 inches, and then I will be putting strap adjusters on there in case they need to adjust it and make the strap shorter. So straps, these two pieces that we just finished, your back panel, and then your reinforcement strip. Let's get some tape on the back of the strip here. I'm going to put a piece along the top straight edge. And the bottom. And I'm going to turn this panel so that it's facing me so that I can see what I'm doing. And that way I can ensure that I get a nice straight edge here. I'm gonna do it on this side actually. So whichever side is the top of your panel, I'm gonna have it to the right. And now I'm going to lay my strip 3 inches from the top of the panel. So I'm just lining up my ruler on the 3-inch line here, 3-inch measurement, and I'm just peeling just one strip of the tape, and that will be toward the bottom. So the unpeeled strip is going to be toward the top of the panel, and I'm just gently, I'm using this edge of the ruler here to line up the top of this piece before I apply any pressure. That way I can rest assured that it's nice and straight. And once I have it in place, that's when I will apply pressure. Now, if you want to, you can go ahead and pop to the machine and stitch along the bottom here so that you don't get any shifting later on. But if you're confident in your tape, you don't need to do that yet. We will do it all in one stitch line. Okay, that looks good. And now what we need to do is we need to put our straps and these upper loop and hang loop into this section here. So they're gonna slip into the top. Now the first piece that goes in is going to be this guy. Now this is your upper closure. That's going to go right down the center. I'm going to leave mine long like this because in a few minutes what I'll do is I will add my hardware like so, and then I'll loop this under, and then I will more than likely leave it the same length that it already is because it looks pretty good right there. But in order to attach this to the back panel, I will use rivets instead of sewing. But so for now, I'm just going to leave this piece long and not put the hardware on. So you need to find your center. Okay, so once you get your center, you want to make sure that the split in this fold, or the split in this piece here, is facing down. And before I peel off this paper that's on this piece here, I'm just going to put a little piece of tape on the back side of this so that it doesn't shift around on me. Just enough to hold it. And I'm lining this up with this midline here. And it's going into this panel about 1 inch. Normally I do it at 1/2 inch and I get everything the same height, but I think I'm gonna bump it down just a little bit more so that way I can add rivets and just have a little bit more breathing room in there. Next up is our hang loop, and you can see it's going to sit right next to this upper loop here. Now the choice is yours. If you want the nice folded edge to face when the bag is finished, what will be the front of the bag, or if you want it to sit like this, it's totally up to you. So I'm gonna do it to where the loop is facing right side up along the back panel. So the split sides are what's going to actually sink underneath this reinforcement strip. So I'm gonna do the same thing with the tape, add just a touch here at the bottom to hold this in place before I tear off the tape that's under the reinforcement strip. And I'll do these one at a time. So I'm going to nestle this folded edge right up next to the folded edge of this hang loop, or next to the upper closure. And I'm aligning the edges down under here. So just like that. And then peel this tape and lay it right next to this side. Just like so. And then next up, we have our straps. And so I'm just going to peel this now, but just halfway, just to give me enough to hold this into place. And so I'm peeling this reinforcement strip back and away. And then I'm going to line up the bottom of my strap here with the bottom of everything else that's tucked under here. And it will go just like so. Apply some pressure, make sure everything's stuck nice and well, and then flip and repeat for the remaining strap. Okay, now we have everything in place. What we need to do is go to the machine, and I'm going to stitch across this. I'm going to stitch really well across all of this. You can add a second line of stitching. You can come back and do rivets. It's totally up to you, but you also want to stitch across the bottom piece as well. Back panel is starting to come together. I find that it's fun to add a little fun tag down and through here if you want to. You can add your label here. I'll be adding my label to the base later on, but this is a fun little area if you want to add something else. Another option, you could add a slip pocket back here for your phone, or a zipper pocket, or, you know, this is a prime location for another pocket if you want to add one. Okay, to reinforce all of this, I'm going to add some rivets. So what I'm going to do is punch a hole. I'm going to mark and punch a hole and then set my rivets. This will be fast forwarded, so enjoy. Okay, got everything all riveted down and seated well. Now everything's locked into place. I'm going to leave the hardware off of here for now, and I'm just going to take these and kind of fold them in on each other. We will attach all the hardware and everything for this stuff later. Because I'm using the big hardware that I sell on my site, that will be added after I add the base and do all of that, which we are getting ready to do. So go ahead and gather your base and we'll get that prepped, and then we're going to attach our front and our back to it. Okay, grab your base and a pen, a ruler, and some scissors. We need to cut out the base section. I want mine to be about 3 inches whenever it's finished. It could be a little more, a little less. I'm not super particular about it. So I'm going to cut, so I found my centers here on the long edge. So I found them here. I found the centers on the short edge actually. And I'm going to cut or mark 1.5 up from that and then 1.5 down to create a 3-inch box, rectangle rather. And then I'm also going to cut in 1.5 inches. And usually when I do this, I'm always a little bit off. There's always something kind of has to come out in the wash. But I can't remember exactly the breakdown, but I guess maybe at this point, by this point I would have already figured it out because I would have edited the video, and yeah, so I don't know, we'll see. As of now, I'm cutting it 1.5 by 1.5. So here I am editing Nicole. I did cut it 1.5 by 1.5, and that was indeed wrong. And so I'm here to tell you, you want a 3-inch tall rectangle by 1.75 inches wide. So from that center line on the base, you measure 1.5 inches up and 1.5 inches below for that 3-inch total. And then instead of the 1.5, which is what I verbalized in the video, you want it 1.75. So again, 3 inches tall, 1.75. Get it? Got it? Good. Okay. So you should have two of the same triangles, geez Louise. Two of the same rectangles, and then we're going to cut those out using some scissors. Same on the side. Right. Next thing we need to do is attach our base to our front and our back panel. I'm going to attach it to the back panel first, so that way I am working with less bulk whenever I'm trying to attach my back hardware, because that's going to attach right over this seam. So right sides together, clip, we're going to stitch together and then flip the base down and top stitch into place. I'm folding my seam allowance up toward the back and top stitching it. Right, we are attached and top stitched, and now we just need to add our hardware. What's under here? So I'm going to take these pieces and I'm going to install them right over the seam. I'm going to measure over, let's see, so 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So I'm going to measure over 1.5 and just lay my hardware where it naturally wants to rest and mark the holes with this section here, this bumped up section going right over this seam. And then repeat that for the side. What is it? Now there isn't any interfacing here on this back panel, so I am going to add some interfaced cork. It's the section that we cut out of here. I just cut off a small piece, fold it in half, and I'm going to double this up before I add my hardware here, just to give it a little bit more to hold on to. So I'll put the rivet in through here, and then place it like so. And then repeat that for this opposite side. And then we'll add the hardware. There we go. So now we just need to add the front panel to this opposite side here. Excuse me, kitty, if you don't mind, I would like this, thank you. Okay, so right sides together. We're gonna repeat the same process. Right sides together, stitch, flip, top stitch. Okay, we've got our whole situation figured out here. Before I move on, I need to attach my tag because I will forget. And so I like to do this right on the base here in this section because this will be the front bottom of the bag. I used to attach them here and here, but I found that putting them right here in the center I find to be the most attractive. But you can do whatever you want, of course. Just going to get a straight edge here. Let's see, sorry for the top of my head. Just got my roots done. What do you think? So I have a big, thick seam right here, so I'm gonna drop it a little. I want it so that my tag isn't interfering with that whatsoever. So I am measuring 1.25. I'm aligning my 1.25 on this seam right here, and then I'm letting the prongs on my tag rest on my ruler. So technically speaking, I'm about 5/8 down from the top, or from the fold. Applying some pressure so that I can see the divots. Okay, so with my X-Acto blade, I will cut these little notches and then install my metal tag. Ta-da! All right, so now to finish up the exterior, what we're going to do is lay these pieces, the front and back right sides together, match up our sides. I also want to match up these side seams here. You can see I stitched them in opposite directions, so it makes this part just a little bit easier. So you can just kind of slide them until they lock into place. And I will clip these side seams first, and then I'll work my way up the entire edges. Alrighty, we're gonna go to the machine. We're gonna stitch down each long edge here. And then what we do is we will push the two bottom pieces together, align that straight edge, and then stitch to create that boxed bottom. We have the whole crew in here today. Salvador. Okay, so we got the sides stitched. I just figured out the issue with my cut, so I went ahead and fixed that. And so now we're just going to align these straight edges. I'm going to butterfly this seam open and then stitch across here, and then repeat that for this side. We are all stitched up, looking good. I'm gonna trim down just a touch on my seam allowances here, but I'm not gonna go crazy. Just like so. And then I'm just gonna come in and trim up these sides. I'm definitely not going to trim off the very top. I'm gonna leave about 1 inch thereabouts. Just helps whenever we are stitching the lining to the exterior in the final steps. It gives us more to work with. But it is nice to trim this stuff down and through here, especially these big thick seams, because then when the lining is inset inside, you alleviate some of that internal feel and it's not, you know, sticking out. Okay, I am going to flip it right side out. We can take a gander at everything, but the main reason I'm flipping it is because we need to add our hardware here, and I want to add this before we sink the lining in, which we still need to make the lining, but I don't want to forget. So we're going to flip it, we'll check it out, and then add this top buckle. This looks adorable. I love it. This is such a good size. The 75% was like a mini backpack. This is like a standard backpack, but just not massive. The full size range is definitely a very large bag. I think this one is just darling. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my hardware and then a clip. I'm going to test fit this situation. Now, something that we need to keep in mind is this is going to be folded under at least 1/4 of an inch. So it's just something else to consider when we're creating this fold. Let's go ahead and clip this down. And then back here, I slid the hardware on and I folded this section all the way down. So let's test that fit first. So when it's folded like this, and then this will come this way. Okay, see, so it's a little bit long right now. I want this to be pretty even. So what I need to do is trim this down. I'm gonna take off about 1 inch and we'll start there. See how that fit is. Okay, so again, I'm just tucking it all the way down as far as I can go. And then, now that looks much better. Okay, so that's perfect. So I think I said that I cut that to 7 inches. And so I will update the cut list to be 6 inches on that. But now that we know exactly where it needs to be, what I'm going to do is get these clips out of the way. I'm gonna put some double stick tape here on the wrong side of this strap while we get the rivets figured out. Okie dokie, so let's get this guy here and then sink that as low as it can go. Ensure that everything is nice and lined up. Looks like that. And now what I want to do is add a rivet or two right in through here. I don't want to clip it all the way up to the top because I need to be able to move it out of the way whenever we are top stitching, whenever we're adding the interior bag, and then also when we're top stitching. But I am going to at least do one to hold it in place. So I'm gonna go 1 inch down from my hardware here and then do one rivet right in the center, just like that. So just right, it's kind of in the center lengthwise, but also widthwise. And now you could totally add this after you get the lining attached, that's fine. But then you're going to be riveting through the lining as well. I have definitely done that before and it looks cute and it kind of ties, it like keeps the lining to the exterior. So depending, you know, later on, I might add an extra rivet as well once we get the two bags nested. So the exterior of the bag is complete. I will do my straps later. Let's get started on the lining. First, we're gonna work on these slip pockets. So we need to get the cat hair off of it first. And then you're going to fold it right sides together. What we're going to do is just stitch down each raw edge, but we're gonna leave the top open. We're gonna flip that in a little bit here in a second. If you want to, you could do a little L stitch. If you've never seen this before, it's how I stitch up all of my pockets. So when I'm stitching, I'm starting down here, stitch all the way down, and then you pivot, you stitch across, and you go over about 1 inch, 3/4 to 1 inch, and then you pivot right here, and then sew right off the panel, leave the birthing hole, and come over here and do the same thing. And then when you do that and you sew up these sides, when you flip it and you add tension, this whole birthing hole just flips right in and it makes a really nice folded edge. So I'm gonna add that as well. So yeah, clip and then stitch up both the sides. Don't forget to drink some water while you're working. Now that I have this stitched up, I'm going to trim down to about 1/8 of an inch. And now if you don't have it fired up already, if you want to, you can turn on your iron and then your edges once we flip this right side out, it will, if you iron it, it'll be nice and crispy. Usually I'm not too concerned about it, especially because there's a double layer of Decaville Light, but if you want to, now would be the time to turn it on. Just flip this right side out. Now, whenever I have these corners, I do like to tuck them back in just a touch, because then it gives just a cool little beveled edge, and it takes away the stress of trying to get a perfect corner. Okay, and then on this edge up here, this is where you put your fingers in. We're gonna grab that L stitch. Do you see how it perfectly folded that front section in? And then now I can flip to the back and do the same thing. And then line those guys up. And there we go, nice folded edge. Now, I like the look of having a cork topper here. I feel like it just finishes it. It gives it a nice finished look. So I'm going to add one of those. And it will look something like this once it's done. I'm going to do it on this edge here. Now, if you didn't want to, you totally don't have to. But it's going to look something like that. And then it just kind of alleviates the need to make this perfect, and I just prefer the look of it. So I cut my cork piece a little bit longer, and then I'll just trim it down once I'm done. But yeah, so I'm going to press this real quick. All right, I got my pocket all pressed and ready to go. Now I have my cork strip that's going to go on top. And what I like to do is fold it to create a folded edge here. But I'm going to fold it leaving 1/8 of an inch gap along this bottom. And I do that intentionally so that I can be sure that when I'm stitching this to here on both sides, that I'm catching both sides evenly. And I always put the slightly longer side on the back of what I'm working on, because it's going to be a different seam allowance back there because of that extra 1/8. But I find that this just helps keep me on track. So 2 pieces of tape. And now the side that's shorter, I'm going to put on my front. So this is going to be the front of my pocket. And I'm saying that because there's a weird gap back here when I pressed it, which is totally fine because it'll just be taken up by this. So I'm going to take the shorter side, peel the tape, and then align it across the top edge here. And then when you flip and fold this back end, another thing that extra 1/8 inch does is it gives you a little bit of wiggle room for this top section to fold around whatever you're encasing. But yes, peel the other side, peel the paper off the double stick tape, and then stick this side. I'm just going to clip it, and then I'm going to pop to the machine. I'm going to stitch right across the bottom, but I'm going to do it from the front side so that just to ensure that I catch both sides. All right, here we go. We're all stitched. Got a little wavy right there, but you know, can't be perfect. I'm just going to trim this little section off here and then burn this. There we go. So now we need to place this on our main lining panel. And I'm going to go 5 inches up from the bottom, because if I do that, then that gives me the 3-inch fold for whenever the bag is completed. It gives me 3 inches of reaching in room to this pocket. So I'm going to center this on the panel, and then we will go stitch it down. All right, so once you get it where you want it, you need to go to your machine and you're going to stitch down and across the bottom back up. I have these cool woven tags. I'm going to slide it down in here and stitch it whenever I'm sewing my pocket on. We are onto the other lining side. I'm going to be putting a zipper pocket over here. So I have my zipper overlay, and the little tag that I'm going to put under there. And that's all that we need for now. So on the back of the overlay, I'm going to put some double stick tape right down the center of the 2 long edges. And then I'm going to put this 5 inches down from the top. Just like we did the other pocket, we're just going to center it, and then I'm going to use this side of the ruler as my guide for where to place my overlay. Before I lay the overlay, I'm going to add my tag. All right, going to go to the machine, and I'm going to stitch around the entire perimeter. I just love the way that this blue thread looks, and I tied off to the back in through here, so it's like super seamless, which is mwah, magnifique. I have no idea if that's how you say that. I never took any French whatsoever. So slice down the center, and we're going to trim out our fabric. All right, so now we need to add some more double stick tape. We're going to lay our zipper in place. I'm going to leave my tails long here, and they'll be covered up by my pocket. All right, so 2 pieces of double stick tape along each long edge. Peel the paper. And then go ahead and get your zipper situated first. Get it nice and straight. Give yourself some area on either end here. And then lay your pull right on your zipper tape. And then center it. And get it taped in. And then on the back, we are going to lay just the bottom edge of our zipper pocket. Now, usually I cut these pieces. I cut this into 2 pieces, but I'm going to show you how I leave it 1 piece, and then we'll cut it later to create the second birth hole. But for now, we're just going to tape across. Well, we can put tape on both ends, but we're only going to pull the paper off of the bottom. So pull this one, and then lay right sides down. Align your edge with the bottom of the zipper tape, like so. Now we're going to go to the machine. We're going to stitch just across the bottom, and in order to keep with my 1 pass and no back stitching, I'm going to pull my threads through and tie off. Okay, so now we are going to fold this zipper pocket back down out of the way. Finger press well. And then now we will peel the paper off the top piece and then fold the zipper panel back up. Keeping your right and left sides nice and straight, we're going to tape it into place. And then now, where this fold is here in the half, or not in the half, but where this loop is, this is where we will cut to create the birthing hole. But for now, let's flip it back to the right side. We are going to sink our needle directly in the hole where we ended on this last run and stitch up and around. Well, okay, so I got everything all tied off and the pocket is complete. Now we just need to sew up the sides here to close it off. But before I do that, I'm going to follow the natural pull of this and trim or cut this in half, because this creates the second birth hole. And now from the front side, peel back this right side of the panel. We're going to stitch across the zipper teeth down, and then we're going to do the L stitch again down here. Skip over, leave a nice decent size, and then continue up this side here. All right, so we're just going to trim down near the bottom here. Try to reduce bulk as much as possible. You just don't want to get super close to your stitches there. And we're going to grab our other lining piece. We will lay them right sides together. Line up your sides, bottom. And then before we go to the machine, we need to cut our bottom corners out. Now I'm going to make mine smaller than what my exterior is, so that way when the two bags, when this is inside the other bag, it will nest nicely and it won't be baggy. So I'm gonna cut, editing Nicole again here, cut 1.5 inch quarters, not 1.25. So again, 1.5 in and down to create that box bottom corner that we're looking for. And there we go. Now we're ready to go to the machine. We're gonna stitch down the side, across the bottom, and then back up. I am gonna leave a large birth hole down here that I will close up through this one, just to make flipping the bag a lot easier. All right, I'm gonna trim down my seam allowance, and then we're gonna box our corners out. I'm going to finish trimming down my seam allowance here. And so we have two options here. We can put the exterior into the interior, since this one's already flipped the right way, because you want the two to be right sides together. But traditionally, you put the inside into the outside. It might work this way. Let's try it. So this is the back of the bag, so you want to make sure that you have the back of the bag. You want the backs together. A lot of times this doesn't work well because the outside is a little bigger than the inside, so let's see what we can do here. I'm going to start by matching my side seams, and I put the seams opposite directions and nestled them up next to each other. Same on this side. And then we'll go around slowly pinning or clipping and see if we can get it to lay nicely. And if not, then we'll flip the other way. Make sure all of this is down out of the way. You don't want to sew on top of it. Yeah, when I cut the lining and I tapered it at the bottom, you always leave the top of whatever panel the regular size, so then that way, whenever you marry the two, the exterior and the lining, it should, in a perfect world, match up and be able to work the way that this is, but a lot of times it doesn't work out that smoothly. I have a lot of excess right here at the seam, which is why when I clipped, I let this stay above. I let the exterior rise above the interior. But when you do that, you just want to be sure that it's even all the way across the whole section, or else it's going to be lopsided. And there's a lot going on right in through here because of the closure, the bag closure. So you just want to take extra care to make sure that it's correct before you stitch anything. Okay, well, this looks pretty darn good. So I'm going to go to the machine. I'm just going to stitch around the whole top, and then we're going to flip the bag right side out and check out what's going on. All right, I put a book under my machine to create a faux cylinder arm, and I'm going to start my stitches here on the side seam, but I'm going to stitch this back section first because I want to keep an eye on this excess. I want to stop it from shifting as much as possible. Okay. All right, so I'm going to trim down some of the seam allowance here, but I'm definitely going to leave a decent amount for the top stitch for later. But I'll take it down to about 1/4 of an inch. Let's flip this bad boy right side out. Whoa. I've never had this happen before. My fabric ripped. Look at that. That's wild. Luckily, it's right next to the seam, so I can just pull this seam in and make it bigger, but wow, that's a first for sure. It ripped like paper. Holy moly. Well, before I flip it back out to fix that, I'm going to put the lining into the exterior just to see how the fit is. I got it all figured out. I ended up pulling it all the way back out and I tightened up the edges and then I fixed the bottom, which that really worked out well because I needed to take a little bit in. Once I got the interior bag into the exterior bag, it just needed a little bit of shaping down on the bottom, so it worked out well. But that could have been a big fiasco had I not needed to take it in, but alas, we are here. So now what I'm going to do is close up this birthing hole through the pocket birthing hole, and I'm going to do that with the lining outside of the exterior. I'm just going to pull the pocket through. And then I'm going to reach in here and grab these two pieces and pull them up and through the pocket. This bag is going to need a really good press once I'm done with it. So now once you get this through, you're going to line up your bottom edges, clip, and then I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm going to stitch right across the bottom. And then I'm going to close up my second birthing hole, the pocket birthing hole. That looks pretty darn good. Okay, now we just need to go back and I'm going to top stitch around the entire top. It is adorable. Aside from a good press, I think it looks fantastic. I really love how the colors came together. Once again, a client designed a combo that I never would, and I am in love with it. I think it came out really nice. And these straps just really, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better color match. Speaking of straps, let's get these bad boys all done. Now, I've never worked with these before. They're definitely woven. I don't know if they have any poly or nylon in them. Let's see. Oh, yep, they definitely do. That's nice. You can burn the edges. So I'm just going to burn all these little fuzzies off and then trying to char it enough to where it won't keep fraying. So we're going to attach these straps to these D-rings using these big lobster clasps, and these strap slides. So the first thing we need to do, slide this guy on, up and over that middle bar. And then I'm going to add the lobster clasp. We need to get some slack up here. And then we're going to come back up and over that middle bar once again. And then we need to attach it to this side of the strap. I'm going to fold this end under about 3/4 of an inch. And I think I'm actually going to put a cork wrap on this just to seal it all in. And the only spot where I did the cobalt is on the front. So I think I will do cobalt around these areas just to have an accent of that back here. Toss a clip in there to hold its place. Okay, so I'm going to cut strips that are 5 inches long. I think that'll give us enough to work with. So 5 by 3/4. Actually, I'm going to start at 6 by 3/4. I'd much rather trim down than not have enough. So let's do a dry fit here. Then if this length works, then what I'm going to do is put double stick tape on it. But what I like to do is I start on the back where it'll be hidden, and then I wrap, then I come back around. So you can see here there is definitely some excess right there. All right, so I'm just going to fold this back so that way I can visually see where I need to cut it. Okay, right there. All right, so need 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Let's see, so some 1/2-inch tape on the whole back. Now, if you want to, you can finish the edges of this with some Mod Podge or base coat, but with the placement on the inside of the strap, I don't think it's going to be an issue. Grab my rivet press so that way it is ready to go. Get my rivets ready to go because this gets a bit fiddly in through here, so it's nice to just have everything all prepared. Okay, so when the backpack's being worn, this is how the strap is going to be. So I want the full piece to be on this side. And you want it to be pretty tight. And so it's going to look like that. And so I looped it back around, and it sits past the halfway point. So now when I put a rivet through here, there shouldn't be any issues with this ever coming undone. I'm just going to punch a hole right through the center. I just love the way that this cork wrap, it makes it just look really nice and complete in there. And now let's repeat all that for this side. Wow, I love it. It's so cute. So imagine I'm holding that beautiful bag. I think it's so fun. The colors are so perfect. That is not a combo that I ever would have come up with. And it happens quite often where I get custom orders and my customers pick combos and I'm like, ugh, that's not what I would do. But then I do it, I bring it to life, and I'm always 100% of the time I'm pleasantly surprised and inspired. So doing that combo definitely made me kind of think more outside the box. I don't do a whole lot of like blue on blue. I tend to kind of avoid the blues for some reason. I'm not really sure. I really like the color blue, so it's strange. But anyways, 10 out of 10 experience working with this customer. She picked every single detail down to the hardware and the zipper pulls and all of that, and she did a fantastic job. I'm really thankful of that. People give me the space and time to bring their creations to life. It's a lot of fun. And I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you back here whenever I'm back. Bye.